Hello and welcome back to the Social Matters podcast. We are three social workers talking about social matters. I'm Fran.
Hi, I'm Nadia.
Hi, and I'm Eugene.
What was it?
I thought because I'm on camera now, I was like, let me just speak out.
What are these guys doing at the side of me? I love it. I was like, what's going on? How are you both?
Yeah, really well, thank you. Really good. I feel like I missed the green memo though.
I was going to say, that's all.
But you've got jazzy. We've all got some kind of pattern.
Yeah,
some
that's
kind of
true.
Pattern going on.
Yeah.
So we're back in the studio.
Yep.
Feeling fly. Always gives us a kind of, I don't know about you, but like the VIP vibes when I'm in the studio.
VIP?
VIP.
Oh. Okay. This reminds me of the other day when Nads was texting and she's like, oh yeah, I'll be on PT. And me and you were like, PT? What's PT?
I was like, am I going to have to Google it? And I was like, is she having a personal trainer? And then you were like, public transport. And I was like, oh, is that a thing?
No, no one uses PT for
What are you saying?
No one says I'm on PT.
Well, in my spaces, they do.
Hold on one sec. We've got a videographer in the room. So just say, do people use PT? Nope.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
There you go.
We were cool. No, it's all right. It's all right. Wow, okay.
You're the only one. First time ever I've heard anyone say, oh yeah, I'm on PT. Just say the train, bro. Well, you have to abbreviate everything, man. I'm on the train, 5 letters.
How was it? Because I was like, oh, what are we doing after? And then you were like, I'm on PT to wherever. I was like, what?
Well, I'm confused. I'm confused that you're saying these words.
I'm confused that, oh, hold on, Naz, you say you're confused with saying these words.
Yeah.
I've known you how many years now? Like maybe 10, 9 years. We've been doing the podcast for 5, 6 years. Not once in our WhatsApp group have you ever said PT.
Really?
Never. Have you heard us say PT
No.
before?
That's why I had to Google it. Had to ask you on the slide. No, I'm joking. I was just like, what is this?
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I'm reassessing
sorry.
life.
No,
right
sorry.
Now.
Well, wait.
No, I'm going to introduce it into my daily vocab now on the PT. Although I don't use PT because I've got a bite.
Yeah.
Which is a nice segue, actually.
Hey, come on.
Because we always have a check-in and we were like, oh, what should we do? But we've had, there's been some comedy journeys to get to the studio this morning. So on PT, do you want to share your PT tale?
Yeah, so I had to change trains and get on the train, obviously on PT, and I was like, okay, cool. It's only 2 stops to the studio. So then I was on my phone on Instagram, and I looked up at what I thought was a second stop, and I was like 5 stops down the line. I was like, oh no, I'm in the wrong place. Like, I'm sorry, guys. And these guys, because I said, I'm leaving my house early.
6 a.m. she messaged us. You just still in bed. You were like, yeah, gotta get going.
She's like, why are you leaving so early? I was like, I just don't want to be in a flat. And this is why I leave my house early, because I do foolishness, like just get carried away with Instagram. Anyway, it's fine. Got here on time.
You've had quite the journey on PT. There's a bit of a theme, and I was thinking about like a theme with us like making kind of fools of ourselves on PT, but actually it's just me and you, isn't it?
It's just me and you.
We have definitely been to places, and it's always one of us who's in the wrong place, gone to the wrong place, like at the wrong, and you just always just very calm, like, okay, get here when you get here.
What about that one where at that time when we were doing some work up in, was it Leeds or Manchester, and then Lads was running late, and I was getting breakfast for all of us, and then Fran was like, I'm here, I'll meet you outside, I don't know, maybe it was Marks and Spencer, I'll meet you outside Marks and Spencer's. And then waiting, and Fran was like, yeah, I'm outside Marks and Spencer's, where are you? I'm like, I'm outside Marks and Spencer's, I'm here. Where is Marks? It's on the inside. No, it's not, it's on the outside. I was like, Fran, are you at Euston Station? She's like, yeah. I was like, it's King's Cross. I'm running.
Thank goodness we give ourselves 2 hours
to get 5 minutes down the road.
Oh God! What about, were you on PT this morning?
No, I just got in my car. Luckily, it's a Sunday today, so it's free parking around here. And I've done a journey before, so I just got into CAR. And
You're an idiot.
So one extreme.
I got into CAR and started driving on ROAD. And then I PA RKED.
I'll come for you.
No,
I won't come for you.
That's why I have to be in the middle.
My journey was smooth, but it is a tricky place to get to on public transport. I was going to say PT, but I had no dramas whatsoever. Nice parking, walked up, got I say I got a coffee. Fran got me a coffee. Thanks, Fran. Yeah. But yeah, I normally am a person that
Gets
has
PT.
has buffer time.
Yeah.
And put buffer time in my diary or in my schedule in order to get there in time. I think maybe it's the legacy of social work and the bad rep social workers get for being late and trying to make sure that I don't replicate that. And it's taken time because normally I'm really bad with my timing, but now I'm like, nope, I'm gonna give myself an extra half an hour. Because even this morning I never left my flat at the time I said I was gonna leave my flat, but still got here on time and wasn't in 5 stops down the line when I should be. And that's no joke. Nad's text that she's leaving as I was waking up.
Yeah.
And we live similar distances away.
That was funny this morning because Huge had his Barry White, hello, just got up. And then Nad's is like, I'm off, I'm leaving. And I was like, oh gosh, how's this going to go? But the whole buffer time thing, Huge only does 2 hours of work a day. The rest is buffer time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not
And
quite
pants.
there yet. I know it stresses me out being late, but I often am. But when I don't, like today, I think the social matters buffer that we give makes it a lot better. So
Yeah.
I cycled in today. I was enjoying it. Cycled in central London over Tower Bridge. So yeah, past the Tower of London. So I had a nice cycle because of the buffer. So thank you that we arranged to meet 6 days before. Because it means it's not stressful. And it's horrible, isn't it? Because I don't like the stress, but I will also push things to the final minute. But yeah, one day I will get there. But yeah, buffer. So we're all here. We're all kind of feeling relatively calm now that we've kind of arrived. PT's moved on because he had the buffer. So today, people, we're going to be talking about psychological safety, aren't we? And I think whenever we're kind of thinking of the kind of topic of conversation, it often comes from those moments maybe in our work or our practice. And I think it came out of conversations we've had when we do sort of training at Social Matters around how we create that psychological safety in that training context. But also, I guess, it can be more broadly, can't it, I suppose, safety kind of in the workspace. And as always, we give a little definition. This is my little black book. There's all sorts of stuff in here, but there's also a definition in here. I'm joking. So one of the ones I got as a sort of definition, just to kind of kick off the conversation in terms of what psychological safety means, because I think we use it a lot in our work, but I guess for kind of the lay people, aka my mum, I kind of had it as a belief that your environment is safe for interpersonal risk-taking without fear of kind of impact or judgment. So that's just kind of one definition. But I suppose to open it up, what do you two think of when you think of psychological safety?
Yeah, it's I like what you said there about like taking a risk and without fear of sort of repercussions. At least that's what I heard you say. And it makes me think about that at work. So like, what is psychological safety at work? And I suppose when that is a thing that's there, you see people being a bit more able to be like, you know what, I don't understand, or you know what, like I've got some stuff going on for me at the moment, like I might need a bit of help, or being able to just take that risk of sharing a bit of self is something that I think I think of with psychological safety, being able to kind of just say, I'm not quite cool, I'm not quite all right, you might need to handle me a bit differently today, or also I'm not fully clear on what the task is, like help me out, without fear of, being, that person's not able to do the job, or a problem or a liability. That I think is what I'd say when I think about kind of psychological safety in the workplace, at least.
Yeah. Similar views, and I think in the workplace, but also in relationships outside of the workplace, whether it's with a partner or whether it's with friends. That idea of being able to, and we talked in episode 1 of this season around authentic self, and I think authentic self in the sense of the sharing of fears or worries or sharing of lack of knowledge or basically saying I don't know, and that kind of safety that's required in order for people to be able to say that, but also take risk in relationships, emotional risks, and risk in the way that you may ask questions. And I think if people are able to feel safe in anything, then they're able to kind of feel more comfortable taking an element of risk. I look at it a bit like a bungee jump, for example, I would never personally do a bungee jump. I don't trust anyone that much. I'm like, because with bungee jump, and everyone always gets this, I'm like, why don't you do a bungee jump down the road from your flat? And no one would do it. They'll do it on holiday. I'm like, why are you going to do it on holiday when you won't do it down the road? The reason why I won't do it on holiday is because the person who's tying the rope, they've done it 100 times that day. One of those times they're going to feel like, wow, relax, and that's going to be me. Like, I don't trust you that much. But anyway, I see it a little bit like a bungee jump where people feel all like jumping out of a plane or whatever, people feel able to take that risk, that practical risk, because the safety has been kind of shared or put in place through the safety briefing that someone offers, through somebody saying to you, oh, I've got this amount of years of experience, for you seeing two people jump before you and still be alive. So on a physical level, that safety has been put in place so people feel comfortable with taking risks. So I feel with regards to psychological safety, I think that replicated, but with regards to an interpersonal and emotional psychological element.
Yeah, it makes me think a little bit about my work when I'm wearing my therapist hat and I'm in therapy with people. That idea of creating safety first in order before you're able to then take risks and try something different and do something different. If you're able to kind of create that connection and therapeutic relationship and create psychological safety, people will hopefully feel able to, they'll feel contained and held, and then be able to kind of try something different, take a risk, share something maybe that they haven't spoken about before, or do something outside of the therapy room that they haven't done before. That importance of creating safety for then, I suppose, for change to happen, really, isn't it?
Yeah. It's interesting, actually, isn't it? The word, I guess, that we're using in terms of safety, but I guess there's also sometimes a counter challenge to that, isn't there? Of like, can we ever truly feel safe? The world isn't a safe space, and often we hear language of bravery, isn't it? Like creating a brave space, and how, what that means to different people. And it made me think about kind of, I guess, in the work context or even in therapy, about like being able to have, be able to feel safe or brave to make mistakes, and thinking about, what are your ideas on whether it needs to come from self or other, or a bit of both? And I say that because I guess in a work context, it might feel that, okay, I work in a space where I feel that, there's a growth mindset. I'm able to make mistakes. I'm able to show vulnerability that enables you to do that. Or do you think you could still bring that challenge even if you don't feel it, based on one's own personality and what you bring? Because you might not feel safe, but you might be someone who's like, I'm gonna bring that anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's interesting, isn't it?
I think this is my response to everything. I think it's a bit of both. Never land in one position. But it's just when both of you were just talking about the notion of safety, and I don't know whether it's well, we haven't explicitly said it, but just thinking about my own psyche, I wonder whether subconsciously I look at safety as a destination. Yeah. But actually, in reality, just in response to what you were just saying there, Fran, I think it's fluid. I don't think safety is a stop point. I think it's an area in which we continue to maneuver, and thinking about the feedback loops, you feel more safe or less safe based on the feedback that you're getting from a particular person. So I may walk into a room and with the intention of saying, look, I'm going to tell my manager or tell this team that I don't feel comfortable with this task, I feel scared, I feel worried. But then based on the feedback that I'm getting, will make me feel more safe or less safe. So it's always, for me, a fluid motion. So there may be some situations, and I've been in those situations where I feel, regardless of the fact that I don't feel completely psychologically safe, I still feel like brave in myself to go and put something forward. Yeah. But then based on the feedback, and that could be through words, actions, inactions, I will shift and move based on that. And also is the importance of the questions, thinking about feedback, the questions people ask and how people respond. And I'm thinking back, just listening to both of you speak, when George Floyd was murdered, and my manager at the time, because of her style, her technique, the way that she asks questions, I'm not a person that will generally ask for help or be really open to kind of say, I'm this and I'm that, because like, generally I feel good. But at the times when I don't feel I I always ask for help, and it's only with specific people. But the way my manager was able to notice that, because she knew who I was as a character, ask questions, that feedback that I was getting allowed me to feel more safe in that space. So I guess, yeah, it depends on the context. I feel comfortable bringing myself into it and being brave and putting that responsibility on me. But then I think the feedback from an individual or a particular context will make me feel more or less safe. But I see it as a fluid.
There's something in that, isn't there, of that kind of a relationship. And again, as we spoke about in episode 1, that kind of connectedness, that manager knows you, notices, and that idea of kind of modelling the model. Because I think we can say like, oh yeah, you know, it's okay to make mistakes, we bring diversity of thought, but if you do, you shut down, you're frog marched out of there, P45, you're silenced.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, you know, that's when any of us or any people, you don't feel psychologically safe, when there's that kind of lack of congruence between what an organisation or leadership are saying and what they're doing. So there's something really powerful in that, into the like, how do we create it? And I think it's back to that sort of feeling, isn't it? You know, because people can say like, oh, you know, we invite feedback and we do that, but then if you do, you're met with defensiveness or shut down. So it is about how people within the organisation at all levels, but particularly leadership, model that it is okay and we mean it.
Yeah. Your point, Huge, about like safety, like almost being a destination or a place, it's making me think about another phrase that I've kind of come across, and shout out to one of my colleagues, Dave, for this one, but he talks about relational reassurance. So what are the ways in which you can create reassurance relationally rather than, I suppose, psychological safety as a destination? That reassurance that, you know what, we're all right here. It might not be great, it might not go exactly, you might take a risk, but there's the reassurance there that it's not going to negatively impact the relationship, or you're not going to be ostracized or dropped or left. But that's something that came to mind when you said that phrase about safety being a goal or a destination.
I like that. Thinking about like the work that we do in our training, I'm just thinking like, what do you think like helps in those spaces to create that safety? Like, what is it that can kind of create that space?
For me, I think one of the things that is important in any space to contribute to creating that psychological safety is relationships, and that underpinning anything and everything that you do. The person who you're working with or working for or you supervise is more than what their JD says. Like, we can't not bring our selves into our work, whether we know it or we're not. What happened at home before you left, how the relationship is with your partner or your family, how you're feeling about the pressures of the cost of living in your home life or whatever. All of that plays a role in how you do your day job and what you are like in the office or in the construction yard or whatever your job is. And I think people need to, organisations need to connect more with that as a reality. We can't park our personal selves at the door and go into our professional selves. So in order for people to feel psychologically safe or contribute to people moving more towards that position is where managers or organisations and systems are interested in the whole person. And to do that is through relational approach. Be interested in a person's experiences. It's not like you're having 2-hour conversation about what they had for breakfast, but you are taking notes that actually you're taking note of like what's going on in their family and what's happening at home, or how wider environmental kind of changes or hardship is affecting them as individuals. And it sounds like a big task, depending on whether that's naturally what you do or what you like, but it will breed results. And I think you both said it before, that actually when people feel safe, where people feel, going back to episode 1, a sense of belonging, where people feel like they're able to bring more of their authentic self, they'll the productivity will increase. They'll want to do their job more. They'll feel more valued, which means that they want to give back to the organisations or back to the individuals. So the idea of psychological safety, I think, is of increased importance in that situation, in those situations.
Yeah, and linking to the sort of, you know, workplace and thinking about productivity and stuff. There's something as well about psychological safety. When it's high, there's less burnout. Maybe people are less likely to want to like look elsewhere or leave. You know, because that sort of that being held in that way at work is probably underrated. You know, probably underrated. It's important to feel safe and not at risk of attack or not at risk of judgment or anything negatively while at work. So yeah, just thinking about staff retention rates, like when you're able to create a space where your workforce and your staff feel safe, it's less likely to lead to burnout, and productivity is going to be high and staff retention is going to be high. So yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And so connected, as you said, to that sense of belonging and getting to know everybody kind of as individuals as well. And I think, you know, back to the kind of previous question of like, you know, is it kind of the context that we're in that creates that safety, or does it come from within, or a bit of both? And I think knowing someone as an individual, I think, can enable that. Like you were saying, like you may be someone who would speak up no matter what, because you know you have that within you to kind of challenge, whereas others might not. But I guess if you know them as an individual, how do you create that space where you can have those feedback conversations? Is it one-to-one? Because some people, no matter how much you seek to create that space, they might not feel you know, able or confident to be able to kind of speak up, to challenge and show that vulnerability. So yeah, I think getting to know them on the one-to-one of kind of how people can offer that kind of feedback to get to know them better. So yeah, so connected with that sense of belonging, isn't it? And those. But I was also thinking of the idea of kind of systemic ideas, Nadie G, our family therapist, but of curiosity. It's that kind of like what might be going on, like what is beneath the iceberg for kind of people within the organisation. And again, that's from leaders, but also as colleagues, you know, like what is it? Just showing that kind of interest and, you know, not just thinking, oh, kind of they're not performing well because of this, like actually what else might be going on. So really kind of seeking to kind of be kind, be compassionate and understand so that people can bring their best selves to work.
Yeah. Well, it's making me think about our own experiences and of when we have felt that safety and where we have like because what was it about that experience or that time or that period or that relationship that made you feel safe, or that work context made you feel psychologically safe? For me, it's someone being curious with who I am as a person and interested and asking those questions. And is it Maya Angelou? We always quote Maya Angelou on this podcast, and as you can confirm whether it is Maya Angelou, but people to quote that people will not always remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. And that for me, it's about feeling. How do I feel in this interaction? How do I feel in this context? How do I feel in this organisation? And that's when I know or feel more or less psychologically safe. And like I said before, that will change depending on feedback and how people responding to different things I've said.
Yeah, I think it's really similar for me in terms of that feeling, and I'm just trying to then break it down what it is, because I've definitely had supervisory relationships or relationships with colleagues where, you know, they might show some interest, but I don't feel that I can, whether it's like sort of trust or whether it feels like I don't want to kind of go there with that particular person. So I'm trying to think like what it is that for some people, and I think it is, back to your example, Yuge, of actually that genuine, authentic interest, noticing, and how that kind of manager made you feel. So I think, I think it is that I feel like someone is really trying to kind of understand and get me. I think giving, and through that, like, it's feeling someone's attuned to you and your needs and where you're at. I think it's often created, I think, in a learning or training context where that space is facilitated well, so that everybody's voice is come across, because you can be in spaces where there might be a dominant voice, but how people are able to bring in others in a way that feels, I guess, safe as well. Because sometimes, if you kind of really put on the spot or those things, that might not be kind of the right space. So I think, it's a feeling that I get, whether it's from a kind of a colleague, a supervisor, or a manager. And I think probably what I've felt is that they've created that interest, that curiosity that enables me to kind of go there. And probably, as I said earlier, that modelling the model, that it's also two-way and relational. I'm not just kind of, showing my vulnerability, but they're modelling that as well.
Yeah, really true.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, like, I suppose, managers that I've had, and what is it, the differences, I guess, between them. And I was thinking way back to when I was quite early on as a social worker, and you still sort of trying to work out what you're doing.
Still am.
Still working out.
And one of my managers, in terms of thinking about psychological safety linked to progression and career progression, it was something about developing my trust in my own decisions and my own sort of decision making, rather than always kind of going to my very competent, experienced, lovely manager for direction. He would really be like, shout out to PJ, he would be really like, and what do you think, Nads? Let's talk about that. And that there's something, I suppose, of like that checking out of what is it that you're bringing, that I suppose the meta communication was, what you're thinking is valuable. So let's hear it. Yeah. Let's hear what you've got to say, and then, take it to the next level. If if there's something that I have that might be helpful in this, let's consider that as well. That for me meant that it created a safety, and then helped me to kind of stretch and develop and grow, because he was so good at kind of developing my confidence in my abilities and decision making.
Love that. Being seen and heard.
Yeah, sorry, I just love the way that you just explained that, Naz, but I wanted you to just explain a little bit what you meant by meta communication, because I think that was great for people to kind of connect with.
Yeah, so I suppose there's the idea of what's being said, so the words, which is like kind of in it, the content, and the meta communication is like, if you go above it, what's the effect of what's happened and what's been said. So like, by PJ asking me, and what do you think, that, that's the utterance, what do you think? But what he's actually kind of demonstrating or showing is like, what I want to hear, what you've got to say. What you've got to say is valuable. And so sometimes we kind of think about what's the meta, not what's necessarily been said, but if we take it above and look at what the effect that has, and the impact. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Hey, do you know that there's a family therapist in the room?
Can I just pause? Because the reason we started this podcast 6 seasons ago was because you were going to start your family therapy training, and you were like, there's no systemic, podcasts or accessible things out there. And there you are, bringing systemic ideas to the people.
Might drop in.
Thanks, team.
Sorry, Fran.
Real. So thank you. Like, interesting conversations. And as always, it's a kind of conversation starter, and just to kind of, I could carry on talking about this for kind of the rest of the day, but Nadi's got some PT to get on, so we have to kind of move on. But I guess after everything we've been speaking about, like, any kind of reflections or kind of take homes and thinking about like creating psychological safety?
Yeah, I guess I would kind of highlight and ask people to take away the idea that safety is not a destination, because I think sometimes, if we put anything, especially psychological safety, as a destination, I think people will be like, oh, when am I there? But if you see it as a fluid and constantly kind of moving and changing aspect based on feedback, then it means that you constantly work at it and trying to make people be in what I would call a psychologically safe zone. So be in that zone, but you can move more or less. But it's not a static position, it's more fluid.
And for me, I really like that question that you asked, Fran, of like, what is it? Like, when you've been in, you felt psychologically safe, what's happening there? And it's just really made me think to, sometimes it's easy to just take it for granted, or, I feel cool with you guys, I feel safe here. But what is it? Like, what is it that means that that's the feeling that you have? because then maybe that you can think about how you might take that into other spaces or in other relationships in other places. So yeah, what is it that creates psychological safety, or when you feel safe? What's happening?
Yeah, to kind of box that up, jar it up, and remember that. I think I would think about that kind of modelling the model, so responsibility for leaders and managers to reflect and think, actually, how much am I, modelling the model if I'm saying, open to feedback, like want people to feel safe, but actually the message that they're getting is not that. But I guess it's an invitation for those who even aren't in a management position to show that leadership and I guess be brave, because I think we all have that responsibility, and I think anyone within a workspace can create that by stepping up, showing that vulnerability to model to others. So I think that modelling can come from different people to create that for others. So yeah, back to that sort of sense of community and belonging, that we all have that responsibility. Thanks, team. So, Nadia on a PT, but we have been 3 social workers talking about social matters. You can find us on all social media platforms. So on Instagram @Matters Podcast, on X Matters.
I just say Twitter. X sounds weird.
Get with the program. We've got a YouTube channel that Huge is the king of creating, and Social Matters Podcast on Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.